Hi, and welcome to our second video here in week 3. We're going to cover Whois and also archive analysis for websites. I've got a little case study here that we're going to do together, okay? So here's a Yahoo News article that was published in August of 2020. And at the core here is a claim that the Antifa.com website is, number one, redirecting to the political campaign website of Joe Biden in the US, and number two, that it has a link to Russia. And so we can see here in the article, someone asked at a White House briefing why Antifa.com is redirecting to Joe Biden's website. And you don't need to know about American politics, and we're not going to go down that rabbit hole on it, but it's all that to say is it was seen as newsworthy, and all that to say is it was seen as potentially a negative thing for Joe Biden. But this claim about it kind of being linked to Russia is the thing that we want to look at. Now, the evidence that they cite is that the domain registration information at one point was listing an address, a name, a company in Russia. Okay? So let's dig into that more here because there's a lot to learn and it's really applicable to lots of other scenarios. All right, so let's do this together. Get ready to get into your web browser. All right, so heading over here to Chrome, I'm going to put in Antifa.com because we want to see if the claim is true that when you type that in, it goes to Joe Biden's website. And sure enough, it does. Okay, so that's true. Someone who owns Antifa.com has decided to redirect it to Joe Biden's website. And the key thing here is anybody can direct a website they own to any other website. That doesn't mean it has any links to Biden. And Yahoo wasn't claiming that. But we do want to understand more about this claim about a Russia link. And I'm going to show you what they saw that made them make that claim, okay? So here we are on domainbigdata.com. That's one of the websites that we're going to be using here. Encourage you to load that up right now in your web browser. And if you put in Antifa.com in the search field there, this is what we're going to see. So this is a typical kind of Whois record. It's going to tell us that the website, this domain was first registered in 2002. It's going to tell us the registrant information. So in this case, we see someone or an entity named Whois Privacy Services, and lo and behold, we see information related to Russia. But here's the thing, that name, Whois Privacy Services, that tells us that the person who bought this domain name actually paid extra money to make sure their information was private. So when you see the registrant information for a Whois record, listing something like Whois Privacy Services or private registration or something as in this case that's linked to potentially a lot of domains, that means that it's a privacy service. It's not actually a person. So the link to Russia simply means that someone decided to pay a Russian privacy service to protect their domain information, their ownership information. That's not a very strong link, is it? And the other thing I want to draw your attention to here is, there's detailed information if you scroll down in Domain Big Data, but what it tells us is that the last time this record was updated is 2017. So now we know that in 2017, it showed this Russian private registration information. But can we get anything more recent? And the answer is yes. And that's where we go and we're going to try out Whoisology. So again, I just entered Antifa.com in the search field, and this is what we get. And the good thing here is that we can see that Whoisology has actually been keeping track of Antifa.com and its ownership information since April of 2013. And the record we're seeing right now is from September of 2020, so it's more recent. And when we go and we look at the registrant information, it no longer shows the one that we had before. It's got a different privacy service, WhoisGuard Protected, and this number here shows that that service is listed with more than 5.5 million other domain names, so it's a popular privacy service, more popular than the Russian one, and it's registered in Panama. So again, we still don't know who actually owns the domain, but we know that in 2017 it had a private register in Russia, and now it no longer does. So how do you publish an article claiming a link to Russia when we know it doesn't show that Russian info anymore? And we can even dive deeper on this, okay? So normally I would have you look up here, get your Wayback Machine plugin. See that? That's where it shows up in your Chrome web browser. And that we could save the page for later, or we could look at a recent version or the first version of this page. But because Antifa.com is currently redirecting to JoeBiden.com, that's not going to work. So instead we go to web.archive.org, we put in antifa.com, and it's going to bring up the records here of all of the times that website has been archived. Here's the really interesting thing. If we go back to 2017, when we know that it had Russian registration information, we can see here that these are all blue dots indicating the days when the page was archived. Now, let's skip ahead here to 2020. All of a sudden, we see green dots. What do green dots mean? Well, look down here. Green indicates redirects. So we can see that this domain name was not redirecting, it seems, until as early as May 31st of 2020, but it wasn't as of January. So the redirect from antifa.com to Joe Biden is very recent. Had nothing to do in 2017 when it was owned by someone who used a Russian private service. And now that it's linked to a private service registered in Panama, all of a sudden, that's when it starts redirecting. And just for reference, if we go back to that time frame when it had the Russian private service, and we look, so here's a record from February 23rd of 2018. We can scroll up here and choose different days in the Wayback Machine. It says this domain is for sale. So at the time that it had this very tenuous link to Russia, somebody was actually trying to sell the domain. And it only started redirecting to Joe Biden in May of 2020. So that's a quick run through of Whois and how we can use archives to actually disprove a claim that was published. You can use this to look up any website. You can go back in time on archive.org if it's been archived, and you'll find it's really, really helpful. So that's it for our second video. Let's move on now and show you a cool tool for connecting websites together.